What's up everyone, Jeremy here. Welcome to another video in the tone sample series. In this video, I'm going to demo some tones I put together using the Andy James STLToneHub Preset pack, running through my Schecter Hellraiser C-7, my Solar A1.7D, and some additional overdrive pedals to change up the tone. Stick around. All right, everyone, real quick before we jump into demoing the tones, I did want to point out that this video actually came as a request from user Skull222K, who asks, would you be able to do a video on the Hellraiser and the Andy James tones just to compare? And to give you context here, this was a comment in a video that I did previously using the Mark Gortz preset pack through the STLToneHub, using my Schecter Hellraiser C-7 I have here, along with my Solar A1.7D, which you'll also see in this video. So the only real difference between this video and that last one is a different preset pack. So in this one, it's going to be focusing on the Andy James at the request of this user. So we'll just go ahead and jump into the first one, which is my Andy James 6505 preset, which sounds like this. All right, so I should note that on the Schecter, I am tuned to G standard, so it is a fairly low tuning. Let's jump into the specifics of this particular preset. So first thing is, this is the PV6505. I do have the overdrive 1 turned on. You can see the drive is all the way off. The tone, what is it, at 7.5. We have balance at 10 all the way up. We have the amp settings. Gain is at 1.3, bass 2.2, middle is up to 8.6, treble is right at 50%, 5.0, presence up to 7.5, resonance 1.8, master at 4.2, and the level at 4.2. And in the cabinet section, you can see I've got the mic, well, right there. I do want to point out I do have the resonance up to 25%. I do have a high pass at 52 Hertz, and low pass looks like it's all the way up. So that is the Andy James 6505, and we'll move on to the next one, which is the Andy James 5153. So here is just a quick demo of what this one sounds like. Okay, so settings on this one, I believe these are pretty much identical settings, pretty close anyways. On the overdrive, we have 7.4 on the tone, drive is all the way off, balance is all the way up. And the amp settings you can see here, we have 1.2 on the gain, bass at 3.0, middle at 8.1, 5.8 on the treble, 6.8 on the presence, 3.2 on resonance, 5.7 on the master, and 2.4 on the level. One thing I did want to point out here is on all of these Andy James presets, out of the box, just as soon as you click on them and open them up, the gain is really high, much higher than I prefer. Obviously, I've dialed it back quite a bit. But I did want to point out here specifically, especially for this particular user, is dial back the gain, dial it way back, like almost all the way off, and then start slowly bringing it up until you start getting that chunky tone that you're looking for without it being overly muddy, because this is, just to give you an example, this is how a lot of these tones or presets came, is something like this, where it's like up to almost 6 or higher. So I'll just go to 6. And then you'll hear just kind of how muddy and disgusting this sounds. Like, it's just pretty gross. So you really got to dial this thing back quite a bit. So here we go. I've got it all the way off here. Until we get some saturation. Here's 1. 1.2. And honestly, right there, that sounds perfectly acceptable to me. I mean, that's pretty chunky, and it's not overly saturated and starting to sound muddy. Yeah. So that's the main point I want to make here, is really dial back the gain. All right, we'll keep moving on this particular preset, and you can see the cabinet section where the setting is there. Move on to the third, which is the Hughes and Kettner. So again, here's the 5153 and the Hughes and Kettner. All right, so again, starting with the overdrive pedal, we have the drive off, we have the tone at 7.9, balance all the way up. Amp settings, again, gain dialed way back, we're at 1.4. Bass, I had to pull way back on this one. It just kind of sounded a little bit muddy, so dialed it back to 0.9. Up to the mids, almost all the way to 9.7, treble at 5.1. Presence at 6.2, resonance at 2.3, master at 5.9, and level at 6.1. And you can see where I've got the mic placement here. I did have up the resonance up, pulled up the resonance to 16%. And let's see, I've got a high pass at 48 hertz and a low pass at 14,000 kilohertz, or 14,000 hertz, 14 kilohertz, whatever the hell that is. For my last one, we have the Andy James Mesa dual caliber. Here's a quick sample of what this one sounds like. This one's quite a bit more throaty. All right, so settings for this. Drive, again, all the way off. Tone at 6.1, and the balance all the way up on the overdrive 1 pedal. The amp settings are gain dialed way back to 0.9, bass at 4.1, middle at 5.4, the treble at 5.6, resonance 4.3, presence at 4.3, resonance at 4.6, master at 5.6, and the level at 3.7. And you can see right there is where I have the mic placed, and the resonance here is at 19%. Let's see, I got a high pass at 48,000 hertz and a low pass at 13,000. All right, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and engage my TS9 Ibanez tube screamer, and with the built-in pedal section off. So I have the level all the way up. I have the tone at just above 2 o'clock, and the drive is all the way off. I'm going to go ahead and engage this. And then let's see what it sounds like with the external tube screamer. All right, so that's with it on. This is with it off. All right, so there's a comparison with the external tube screamer. Let's go ahead and just kind of quickly compare the built-in overdrive one with the tube screamer back and forth. And ideally, these should probably sound pretty similar because I believe this is actually based on a tube screamer, but we'll see here. So here's tube screamer off and overdrive one on. All right, and now the TS9. Yeah, those sound very, very, very similar, as they probably should. So here's where things are going to get a little bit different. We're using the fortinzuul and grind pedals from a Neural DSP Fortin Cali Suite plugin. So if you have a grind or an actual grind pedal, or if you have the emulated version as it comes with some of the Neural DSP Fortin suites, you can put this in front of the STLToneHub or the Andy James or whatever other guitar plugin you may have. Just put this in front of it, turn off the built-in stomp section, and then this is what you get. So immediately you can tell it's not pushing the amp quite as hard. It's not as saturated. But at the same time, the grind does a fantastic job of really cleaning up and tightening up a muddy or very low-end heavy guitar tone, especially if you're tuned way down to G like I am. So all we really have to do in this case is we can pull up the master a little bit to help saturate it and actually pull the gain up a little bit and to compensate, and we should be getting back to something a little bit more as saturated as what we had before. Yeah, I mean, you can really tell how it just completely tamed that low end. In fact, it may be too much. I may actually have to bring up some of the bass with this grind pedal. Let's see what this sounds like. Yeah, a little bit better, but you can see it. That gives you an example of how these different overdrive pedals that you may have at your disposal can affect the tone. So let's go ahead and make the switch now to the Solar A1.7D, and we'll run through all of this same stuff with that just to kind of see how it sounds like with that guitar. All right, I am back with my Solar A1.7D. This has the stock Solar Duncan pickups in it. And one thing I should have pointed out at the very beginning of this video, but I will do so real quick now, is my entire signal chain. I'm going from the guitar into a Behringer Ultra DI Pro rack mountable unit here. That's going into my Focusrite Scarlett 8i6 audio interface, and then from the audio interface going into the Mac. So, and then from there you see on screen everything that's affecting the tone from there. So let's go ahead and run through these presets real quick here. The Solar, just kind of give you an example of what each of these sounds like. You've already seen the settings, so I'm just going to quickly jump through each preset. And this is the Andy James 6505. So the Andy James 5153. Sloppy as hell. Oh well. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Andy James Hughes Kettner. Okay, and last we have the Andy James Mesa dual caliber. All right, so there you have it with all of the presets as they are without any changes compared to what I just showed with the Schecter. So now I'll just kind of demo as I did before the 6505 with the Fortin grind engaged, and now I'm going to turn off the built-in overdrive or stomp section. Let's see, the grind is engaged. See, yep, it's getting signal. So let's go ahead and to see what this sounds like with the Solar. Yeah, just like with the Schecter, not quite getting as saturated of a signal here. So we'll just go ahead and bring up the gain a little bit. We'll bring up the master just to try and help saturate things. Bring up the bass just a little bit, and then see what we've got. Yeah, that's nice and chunky. Alright everyone, that is a wrap on this video. If you liked what you saw here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the bell so you're notified when I upload new videos. Don't forget to like and share, and I want to hear your comments. Hit me down in the comments section below. What'd you think of the tones I put together? If you have a suggestion of a video maybe I could do in the future, I'd love to hear that as well. And as always, thank you for watching and thank you for your support.